Okay, so here I am.
Okay.
I am with my aunt and uncle, Aizhee and Irene Kushner. They were sitting in Highland Park, Illinois, and today is May 12th, 2024. So the floor is yours.
Well, what do you want to know?
I'd
I'm
like to know about I'd like to know about your early memories. I'd like to know even details like an address, where you lived, things you did, your
I was
parents, your
born.
grandparents.
My name is Yitzchak Kushner, Erwin Kushner, Isaac Kushner, and my middle name they say is Naphtali, Naphtali Isaac. That's what I get called up to the Torah for. And I was born August 12th, 1937, while all the Churban was going on in Europe. But of course, I didn't know about it. And I was born in the 1216 South Spalding Avenue on the Great West Side, or as they say in Yiddish, the Great West Side. And at that time, it was a Jewish neighborhood, maybe 50, 60% Jewish. But I remember a lot of Jewish neighbors, and there being a shul down the block, and there was another shul around the corner, and there were shuls almost on every block. And we were just a few blocks away from Douglas Boulevard, where the yeshiva was, and the JPI, Jewish People's Institute, and the boulevard were lined with synagogues, with shuls, and on Yom Tov, it was wonderful to see literally thousands of people along the boulevard. And I remember on Shabbos, my parents who would walk down Roosevelt Road, and I would walk with them. Maybe I was 5 or 6 or 7, and they would couldn't get very far because every 10 feet they'd meet somebody else, the Galagonja, and talk about whatever. Um, they say I spoke Yiddish before I spoke English because Yiddish was spoken in the house. Uh, our Zaidi Neach, my father's father, Benjamin, my father Benjamin's father was Neach, and he came to live with them in a little 5-room apartment that we had when my sister Chaya was born. So there were 3 kids and my grandfather and my parents in a 5-room apartment. I remember sleeping in the dining room, and we had a wonderful front porch where we always used to sit out. Big colonial porch that was about 20, 25 feet long, and we spent a lot of time on there. It was really nice. I remember the early days. I was probably 7 years old when the end of the war was announced, and up and down the street, the whole city became alive with trucks and people waving flags and dancing in the streets, and it was really something to remember. Um, I had a couple friends on the block, but I used to walk to the Independent Douglas Boulevard, and I went to the JPI, where was a roof garden where the Jewish People's Institute had a day camp. Um, and I attended for kindergarten Lawson School, elementary school.
What?
Um, for whatever reason,
Lawson?
Lawson School.
Okay.
It wasn't too far away. And for whatever reason, my mother, God bless her soul, Lorraine decided to send her kids to the day school. She found out there was a day school forming in Chicago, the first one in Chicago, probably the first one in the Midwest. And we're going back now to 1945. And so she enrolled us in went to Lawson School for kindergarten. And for first grade, I was already into the Hebrew parochial school on Independence Boulevard. And I remember learning, it was a typical day school. We learned Hebrew in the morning and Torah in the morning and davening in the morning. And in the afternoon, we learned English a little bit. And I still have a picture of the whole school posing for a photograph. And maybe there was a couple hundred kids in this first day school. Um, so I attended the day school. We moved when I was about 10 because the pressures in the neighborhood started to change. Chicago's demographics started to change, and the West Side was no longer a place for Jews, and Jewish people moved out to Rogers Park and to Skokie if they wanted to bought a new house, and the whole demographic changed. We didn't move north like most people did to Albany Park. We moved about a mile and a half west to 1238 South Kildare. 1238 South Kildare was a 3-flat building. We had the first floor. In our old apartment, there was a 8-flat building that Ben bought out of foreclosure during the Depression. And this was a 3-flat building with a basement apartment. Anyway, the area was called Franklin Park. And oddly enough, it was only 3 blocks away from where the Kosofskis lived, 2 blocks away. The Kosofskis lived around the corner on Roosevelt Road. Lorraine Reitze met Yitzchak in a small shul that we had called Machaziki Adas, right around the corner from where we lived, on Tripp Avenue in 13th. And the Reitze used to go to the Shomer Adati on Independence and Douglas and meet with all her religious friends that she met there through the parochial school and later on the academy where she went for high school. I went to the parochial school till about 6th grade. Then I went to the academy, Jewish Academy, and continued my double education, both in Yiddishkeit in the morning and in the afternoon. It was English. It was a small school near Madison and Crawford, and I imagine it had maybe 500 or 600 students, and that's where most of the religious people went for high school.
Which school is this?
It was the Academy, Chicago Jewish Academy.
500 or 600 kids?
Maybe it was more like 200 or 300 kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe it was 200 or 300 kids. I don't remember. Right?
Even so, that's a lot.
Or maybe it was less. Anyway, and I went to high school there until I was 18. That neighborhood changed also, and the academy finally moved out after I graduated, and after Lorraine graduated, Reitze graduated, and we moved to Rogers Park. I was about 18 years old, and I decided to go to college. I didn't know what I was going to do. I probably was going to take engineering, and enrolled in the Circle campus, which was a terrible place to go. It leaked water and smelled, and it was an old pier that they converted into schools. And it was sticking out into Lake Michigan. My experience there was very negative. I quit after 6 months and worked the rest of the year, and for a company that manufactured window frames, and in fact, picture frames. And in fact, that company I think is still in existence, Turner Manufacturing, on Ogden and Costner. I then was enrolled in Teachers College that had a campus in Chicago for a year, and I went there with a friend of mine. And when that year was up, I had to make a decision what to do. And the Teachers College of Physical Education was transferred to the far south side. So I went and transferred to the far south side. It was also called Chicago Teachers College, and spent 3 years there and got my degree. Meanwhile, Reitze and the Kosofskis were married and had an apartment in Albany Park, and were starting to raise their family. They lived on Lawndale Avenue, just south of Lawrence Avenue. Had a little apartment.
That was your father's building.
It was my father's building. My father was a partner with his sister-in-law, his brother-in-law, Spector, Goldie Spector, and so they were partners in the building, and eventually the Spectors bought them out. We moved to Rogers Park.
Wait, Spector meaning Bubby Jenny's
Bubby
sister?
Jenny's sister.
Okay, and she was Goldie. What was his name?
Goldie, and he was the name escapes me. It'll come back to me.
Not Abe.
Yeah, Abe Specter,
Who's
right.
Abe Specter?
And he had a whole family of Specters that lived in Hyde Park on 55th Street in Ellis, just a half a block away where the atomic bomb was conceived at the University of Chicago. And that was a Jewish neighborhood at that time too. That has since turned, of course, as Albany Park. Jews still lived there for a long time, but mainly went to Rogers Park, and not Rogers Park. They went to new homes in Skokie. But mostly of the Frum community was in West Rogers Park. A lot of Jews in East Rogers Park, but mostly West Rogers Park, centering around California and Devon, California and Toohey. And many shuls were built there. And my father, Ben, was intent on taking a small shul that we belonged to on Trip and 13th, not Hezekiah Das, and he liked the rabbi very much, Rabbi Goldman. And they searched for some place to build a shul to keep the shul going from the west side. They couldn't find a place. They looked high and low, and they finally found a place a bit away from the Jewish neighborhood, but in between this neighborhood and East Rogers Park. They found a lot. They built a shul. Zedi Binyamin was the force, together with only 4 or 5 other men, and they raised the money and took the money from what they sold on the west side, and they built a beautiful little shul. And in fact, it was next to a convent and next to a church, Catholic church, and I don't think the church didn't like the Jews being there. I was on one of my first dates with my wife Irene, and we just got out of the theater on Sheridan and Devon, and I turned on the radio with the car, and as an announcement, there was a bombing in Chicago on Devon Avenue. Sure enough, someone bombed the new shul. So it wasn't quite finished yet, and actually the bomb was a gift because they got enough money to rebuild the shul in a much better way.
Mm-hmm.
So what the Goyim tried to do eventually benefited us. Thank God nobody was hurt, but it was an interesting time.
When you
That
say covenant,
time,
you mean the one, yeah, when you say the convent that was next to a convent, you don't mean the place what's it called, Angel Guardian across the street?
Angel Guardian, yes.
Angel Guardian, okay.
Yeah, it was a very large Catholic installation. They had an orphanage there and a church there, and God
Is,
knows what a business there,
do you know
flowers.
do you know if it's still there?
Sure, Angel
Okay.
Guardian is still there. Anyway, I graduated college, and I got a job in a West Side school in the Austin neighborhood, and I got a job in a beautiful gymnasium in a small school, and it was a schlep from the house, but it was a nice job, and it was a small school, very controllable, and I shared that school with another small school that was about 2 miles away, and I would go 2 afternoons a week to the other school, and soon afterwards, I was about 24 years old. I decided to go to the Yom Kippur night dance, which was held every year at the Morrison Hotel. So I figured, well, it's a good chance. Maybe I'll meet somebody. I was dating on and off here and there, but I went to the Morrison Hotel, and lo and behold, all these Jewish girls and boys up in the top of the Morrison Hotel, and music is playing. And across the room, I spied this beautiful lady sitting, smiling in a yellow mandarin dress. And I went over and asked her to dance. And she said she didn't know how to do the cha-cha. I says, I'll teach you. So from there, 6 months later, we were engaged. And that was one of the better things that happened to me in my life. And we settled in West Rogers Park, not too far from Ben and Jenny.
Where
And
was that?
that was in the 62, 63, 64. So we lived in West Rogers Park. Unfortunately, Zadie Benyamin was sick, had a very bad heart situation, and had multiple heart attacks, and tried his best to stay best he could, and his doctors tried to help him, but eventually we lost him.
Do you remember what year that started? His first health issues with the heart?
Well, he died at 65. It started about, say, 1960, about 5 years before. So 5 years before he stopped working. He didn't work hard. He had a few men who worked for him, and he used to do work, contracting work for a big company, had buildings on the south side. And he always had work during the Depression, so he was always able to provide for his family in a good way. And he was always involved in the show, um, as was my Zadie Neach, who also was a chazan, by the way, and very learned. So we lived on Rockwell, 6140 Rockwell, which was not far from Devon, 2 blocks from Devon. And Irene used to take, then Scott came along, and Bonnie Shira came along, and Irene used to go all over with her bicycle with Shira on the back or in the buggy, because it was easy to go shopping. It was only 2 blocks from Devon. And at that time, High-Low Foods would deliver the food, and
They
they had
delivered?
canned food for 10 cents a can. And Ann's supermarket that was on Devon Avenue used to deliver the food to our second floor apartment.
Hilo was on Devon between
California and Western.
yeah, it'll be Hilo is between I think Richmond and
California was between California and
Sacramento and Richmond, I think, was
something
the
like that.
Hilo.
So
Or maybe no, block over, a few blocks over.
yeah, you're right. And that was Hilo, and Ann's was on the other side of California.
Okay.
So we were lucky because we were half a block from a park, where Irene could take the buggy, and she used to take the buggy on her bicycle with Shira on the back and go shopping and visiting. She had a relative nearby, the Zussels, and she had a cousin nearby, Shirley's, Beverly. So she was comfortable in the neighborhood. She was working when she first got pregnant at the University of Illinois, and she got a job. She went there for a job cold, because they wouldn't approve her physiotherapy license from Glasgow University. They wanted her to go to school for 3 more years. And she told them, "Look, I'm ready to work now. If you have a test, I'm willing to take a test right now, right this minute, and I'll pass the test. And I want to get some kind of a license."
Irene had a degree from Glasgow University
In physiotherapy,
for physiotherapy. Okay.
but they wouldn't honor it here. She went to Northwestern, and it was a momzer out there that wouldn't let her practice unless she went to school for 2 more years. They wanted the money. But I said, you know what? You got enough to do here, going to visit Scott and with Shira. You don't have to work. She worked in the house, of course, and she cooked and did what she had to do, took care of the kids. And after 3 or 4 years on Rockwell, we moved once to Evanston for a short time. Then I bought a house in Morton Grove.
What year did you move to Morton Grove?
Probably it was 67, 68.
Okay.
About 5 years after we were married. We spent 4 years on Rockwell and a year in Evanston. And it was a small house, but it was bakfem. Irene could walk to the drugstore and to the dentist and to the supermarket and various other stores. She could walk to the park. She could walk to the swimming pool. She could walk. So it was a very, very convenient location. I was only a few blocks from the highway, and eventually took an office in Morton Grove, which I had for about 15 years on Waukegan Road in Dempster. So I had a little 2-room office where I did my thing. I had my typewriter and my copy machine, my fax machine, and my telephone, and a telephone in my car way before anybody else. It was my business to be out in the street and solicit properties. And so the neighborhood worked out very good. Eventually, we made some friends in the neighborhood, some friends that we have to this day. And since we were there, we formed a small shul of all new residents of Morton Grove in a little building on Waukegan Road in Dempster. And she made some lifelong friends in the shul. And then some other friends of ours moved in from Des Plaines, not far away. So we had a nice circle of friends and acquaintances in the neighborhood. The house was a very small, but it was open to everybody, and everybody came to visit us there. Um, Meanwhile, I had the opportunity to work in somebody's office for the summer. I took off the summer. Some summers I taught, but one summer I decided not to do that and go to work in his office with my real estate license. I had a real estate salesman's license.
Around what year is this? Around.
Um, that was around 72, about 72, 75. Yeah, early 70s. So I went to work in his office, and at that time he was doing some interesting things in real estate, and I was doing just some brokerage work in investment property and larger apartment buildings. And over the summer, I made twice as much money in commissions that I made teaching the whole year. So we had to make a decision when the summer came to an end. And I asked Irene, I says, it's a chance. Should I take the chance? Or should I give up my good job with a pension and security and all the good stuff and go to work in the office? She says, you know what? You're young. I'm willing to take a chance. We can be careful with our money and go ahead and do it. So I took the big
What
step.
kind of what was the work that you were doing over the summer? You were selling homes?
No, I was soliciting apartment buildings. I'd call people up and ask them if they're interested in selling. And I established a system, and it worked for me. So we had 2 or 3 sales the first year, and that gave me more money than I was earning teaching. I think I was making $20,000 a year, $18,000 a year as a teacher, which wasn't very much, but it paid the rent and paid the expenses, and I put away a few dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so so we were in the house about 5 years after I started. That's when I gave up teaching, 6 or 7 years, and I worked in the office there for about 6 years. He was doing some very interesting things in real estate, and I had a salary because I was a sales manager, um, and eventually went out on my own. I said goodbye to him after 5 or 6 years, and Bonnie had graduated college. Bonnie graduated college. Yeah, we had the office on in Morton Grove on Dempster and Waukegan Road.
Was that in a
When
shopping
Bonnie,
center or in a strip mall?
it was in an office building.
In an office building. Okay.
Yeah,
Near where your aunt lives.
right near your where
Francine.
next to where Fran lives. So I started doing the real estate, and I started doing very good. And the house got smaller and smaller. Scott was home, and we had visitors all the time. Irene's parents came for a couple of weeks. Bubby Jenny used to come over every weekend and stay for Shabbos, and picked up all the things that had to be sold or repaired. Bubby Jenny, and watched the kids. Um, and so, like I said, we had friends there. So my new job was challenging. I, worked a lot of hours, but I did very, very well. I doubled and tripled my salary. So it worked out for me until I opened my own office, and then it even was better. And it was nice because Irene used to come and visit me in the office, and we used to have lunch together. So,
Well, I took the house stick courses.
and then Irene says, well, maybe I should be a salesman too. They'll help me because she used to help me in the office. So she and her girlfriend went and took the real estate exam, and became salespeople. But because I didn't encourage them too much, I was busy with my own stuff. They decided not to pursue that. But
Mhm.
Irene helped me a lot in studying for a big exam to become a broker, and she attended classes with me and supported me. And I passed the broker's exam and was able to hang up my own shingle.
You said this is when Bonnie graduated?
Well, before Bonnie graduated, she was still. Bonnie went away to Michigan. She got into the University of Michigan, which was hard to get into. And after a year there, she had just taken regular courses and was paying out-of-state tuitions. And I told her, if you want to stay in Michigan, you have to take you have to get a marketable degree, something that when you get out of college, you got a job.
Not
Not
literature.
or music or philosophy or history. So she took architecture, she loved it, and she got a job, and she did very well with her architecture, and worked most of the rest of her life part-time for different architecture firms. Shira got through University of Indiana in Bloomington in 3 years with a double major in communications and business. I don't know.
3 years.
We used to visit her down there, and it was very nice, and she had a good experience. She came back. She lived at home for a while, and we used to take the kids camping. And then in, I think, 85, I bought a big camper, and that could sleep 5 people, because we used to camp in a small van. I used to have a green van, a large green van with a big top where you can stand up inside. And for many years, we used that van to go to Florida, to camp around the Chicago area. It was our way of keeping kosher and being away for a week, because we took our food with us.
Did you convert the inside to yourself?
Yeah, I converted the inside, so it had a bed, and it had a sink, and it had a counter space and a cabinet, but it didn't have air conditioning, and it didn't have refrigeration, and it didn't have water. It had nothing. And Irene, how we went away for 2 weeks to Florida without air conditioning, without refrigeration, without water, without a toilet. And we parked on a beach and had wonderful, wonderful times. We did this several years in a row. And Irene was unbelievable in providing food every day and 3 times a day and taking care of everything. And we had everything packed away in there. It was unbelievable. I remember one time, the first time we wanted to find a place to camp in the panhandle of Florida. And it was nice because it was only a day and a half's ride. So we didn't have to drive too long.
From Chicago.
From Chicago. So I used to take Bonnie and Shira and Scott out of school. And Scott at that time was working part-time. He didn't want to go camping with us to Florida. But we went with the girls, and I drove to Pensacola Beach, Florida. And we first stopped in Louisiana what do you call it? What's the town in Louisiana?
Um, New Orleans?
New Orleans. So we stopped in New Orleans for a night, and we spent the day there having fun, looking at all the things. And I needed some more things, kosher things, for the 2 weeks we're going to be on the camping, or a week and a half, 10 days, I don't know. The kids were out of school for Hanukkah. So I says, well, I'll call Lubavitch. I says, somebody from our family is related to the Chabadnik in Pensacola.
In New Orleans.
New Orleans. It was Gordon.
Yeah.
Gordon and his sister there. At that time, we're going back mit 40 years, okay? And so I called up the rabbi. I says, I was talking to Rebbetzin. And I says, we're here and we're passing through and we want to say hello. And we're related through the Gordons. And where can I buy kosher produce products in New Orleans? Because we're going to be spending the week camping, and we're going to the beach camping. We're looking for a real nice beach. So there's quiet on the other end of the phone, and she says, "You're going camping for 10 days. You're going to be camping on the sand." I says, "Yeah." She says, how can you do that? I said, "Look, it was good enough for Moshe Rabbeinu in the desert for 40 years. It'll be good enough for me for 10 days." Little did I know that I had Irene. And so the first year we camped on the beach there, we found a beautiful beach in a national park on the ocean, and the kids swam and had a wonderful, wonderful time. And every day,
That's on the
Pesach. Now
that's
it's
on the coast.
Pesach.
Huh?
You had to prepare Pesach.
It's Pesach.
Pesach with no hot water, no. I had a stove.
Yeah.
Oh, the meat lasted 2 days.
And that's on like a Panama City Beach area.
No, well, yeah, it was a little
Pensacola.
It was Pensacola Beach.
Pensacola.
I went into the Marines in New Orleans. I said, "Where's the nicest beach?" So he told me a state park. We went. That's where we went. Outside of Pensacola Beach, there was a wonderful state park, and we put down the tent, and we stayed for 10 days. And Irene somehow made bulkies every day, and how she. So the next year we went again, and this time she gets smart. So we call up I says to the rabbi, and I called the rabbi in Pensacola, and I says, "Where do you get your meat?" He says, "We get it from Orlando." I says, "Would it be okay if we ordered meat from Orlando and have it delivered to you and you kept it in the shul in your freezer?" He says, "No problem." So Irene, I find a butcher in Orlando, and Irene says, "I want to make an order." He says, "Yeah, where do you live?" She says, "Chicago." He says, and it's quiet on the other end of the phone. He says, "I don't deliver it to Chicago." He says. So we explained to him what to do. Give it to the rabbi in Pensacola, and we'll pick it up there. We'll pay her over the phone. So we did that, and it was wonderful because once or twice we were able to go back to the shul, pick up the meat that we needed, and bring it back to the campsite. So that was our experience with the kids on Pesach in the Panhandle of Florida. And then we got a bigger camper. Irene says, I'm not going to camp anymore unless I have air conditioning, unless I have water, unless I have a shower, unless I have a toilet, unless I have a stove and an oven and a refrigerator and a freezer. So I went out and bought a bigger camper. Now, it wasn't that big, but it was enough to sleep 5 people. And the kids always slept in a tent, and we slept in the camper. And
can I ask you what the camper cost you? Do you remember?
I bought a used mini camper. I think it cost me $15,000.
We have people here who have campers for like, I think they're $500,000.
$500,000, yeah.
You push a button and the side extends.
Oh, I had that. Tell you a story. So this camper was not that big. It was only 23 feet. But we slept inside and had nice beds, and we had all the things. We had a shower and a refrigerator and water tanks and a toilet and toilet tanks and electricity and a generator. Ala milas, okay,
5-star
TV set, and we had everything for $15,000. So I used that camper for 18 years. We used that camper going to Florida, and we used to live in it for 2 months at a time. Now with the kids were grown already and off to college, and we were free to be lost in America. And the nature of my business was, as long as I had a telephone and access to a fax machine, I could do business from wherever I was. So sometimes I had deals going, and I was sitting on the beach conducting business.
Where was it? Do you remember where you went?
We found 2 wonderful places. One was in the Keys. We initially, before we started camping, rented a camper, put all the kids in it, and went down to the Keys, in the middle of the Keys, found a place under a palm tree next to the water, and we stayed for 2 weeks. So when we started camping with the camper, we went back to the Keys and we found a wonderful campsite in Key Largo, about 70 miles from Miami. And we were right on the beach, and we had this wonderful place with other people. One Jewish family we met, became friends with. They were the Balabans from the Balaban Theater. This was one of the brothers who was at one time the accountant for Michael Reese Hospital, and him and his wife were like us. They were campers. At that time, they were in their 80s. They were still camping.
Mm-hmm.
But we went down about a half a dozen times over the years to this one spot. We developed friends that we would see every year, and so we had people to talk to and things to do. We could swim. We could. I bought a little boat. We had toys. I brought my motorcycle down. We brought our bicycles. We windsurfed. So we lived like beach bums for 2 months every year. So it was a marvelous, marvelous time of our life. At the time, I was about 45, 50, 55. And so we camped quite a bit until we moved to Highland Park. Before we moved to Highland Park, we thought we were done camping. And I sold the camper. I gave it away. And in a weak moment, I found another camper, a 34-footer with Rockstar bus, where one side opened up to give us a couch and 2 feet extra room by 5 feet to 10 feet. And in our bedroom, we had a separate bedroom where the wall opened up to give us a full closet.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like having our own cabin, our own condominium. And it had everything, 2 air conditioners and generators and all the things, 2 television sets and places to sit and places to have company and the stoves and ovens and refrigerators and showers. So we use that.
Awning outside.
Pardon?
Outside, an awning.
An awning outside. Oh, sure. And so we used to set up camp and put out the awning, and we put a net around. We're placed on a patio, and we cooked outside. We cooked inside. And once we parked it, we plugged it in, and we had cable and electricity and everything else in the Keys. And then when our friends moved to Sarasota, Florida, we went to visit them there. They were right on the beach in a beautiful area. I discovered a small little jewel of a campground right on the beach among $1 million homes and right next to a public beach. And it was a small little place. And we started going there for 2 months in the summer. And we had our friends nearby, and we had the water and the beach, and our camper plugged in with all the amenities. So we used to go to those 2 places, one in the Keys. And then when the one in the Keys closed, we found another place in the Everglades. So we had different places to go. We made different friends wherever we went. That was our camping experience. In business, I had my own office, as I said, for about 10 years. So all I needed was a copier and a fax machine and a couple of file cabinets, a couple of desks, and a telephone. And I worked by myself. No one ever came to the office. Every once in a while, a client came, but all my business was done over the phone or in person. And I developed a very interesting following of people who were always buying real estate. And I sold to pension funds, and I sold to partnerships and to REITs and to individuals. And everyone would take my call because I was always very knowledgeable about real estate because I helped manage Zaidi Binyamin's properties, which we sold off. It was just too much to handle. My mistake. I should never have sold them. But we kept the 3-flat building in Sacramento,
Mhm.
and sold off much later. And that's your father and I were partners in that building.
Is that K&K Management
That was K&K Management,
owning the Sacramento building?
Sacramento building. And we sold that about 5 years before your parents went to California. We got a very good price, and we split the difference. And that was the last we saw of the properties.
And I'm guessing before that you bought Heike, my father bought Heike out.
Heike decided she wanted out some time ago, and we got an appraisal on the property, and we gave her a third of the value. We took out a new mortgage to pay off the loan.
Yeah.
Gave her share. Because she unfortunately didn't needed the money. She had a very difficult life in Israel, and to her credit, she raised 7 kids by herself. Her Herschel was not too much involved except with his Torah work.
Yeah.
So she was unbelievable, but she didn't have an easy life, but it was a good life. She was in Israel doing what she wanted.
Yeah.
So we were in the house a long time. The kids went their separate ways. Shira went her separate ways. She had her own place. Scott wanted to move out as soon as he could, as soon as he was 20, and he moved in with a friend of his. And since then, has always had his own apartment. And we eventually bought him a place on just east of California near Tui. And
on California?
No, he was on I can't think of anything.
Washtenaw.
He was on Fitch. Fitch was 2 blocks south of Tui, and he was 1.5 blocks east of California.
Okay.
Near the park. There was
Yeah.
a zoo in the park.
Indian boundary or something.
Pardon?
No. Okay.
So that's where Scott lived, and they lived there quite a few years until he got married, and then he moved to his apartment in Skokie, opposite Old Orchard, in his 1-bedroom apartment, and that's where he is today. So he's been there 20 years, and always had a little, a job. He didn't make a lot, but he got by with our help and God's help, and today he's still living there. And he's got friends in the building, and friends in the neighborhood, and people know him. He's got a good following. He's got a lot of support group, and he's doing well. In fact, he was here today. He promised he'd come Sunday morning and make pancakes. So he came and made pancakes for us this morning.
Mother's Day.
Mother's Day, right. So that brings us up. Bonnie got married, and she married a fellow from who was living in Chicago, going to school. He was from Detroit. No,
Peoria or Cleveland?
Cleveland. Mother lived in Cleveland, and his divorced father lived in Cleveland, and his mother lived in Bloomington.
Peoria, I think.
Peoria, Illinois. And he lived here. He went to school. He was working a little bit and getting by and going to school. Bonnie met him, and she met him through a girlfriend, and she fell in love with him because he was the only boyfriend. She was sick, and she went special and bought her kosher chicken soup. And so she got involved with Eric, and not too long, much later, they got married, as you well know, and they settled in Chicago. And eventually they bought a house in Highland Park. Nice little house in Highland Park. And where
3 floors.
They had 3 floors. They had a basement, the first floor, and a second floor. So they spent a lot of money in the house. They remodeled the basement into a very nice sitting room and an extra bathroom. And the first floor, they put in a whole brand new kitchen, a designer kitchen. And the third floor they had 3 tiny little bedrooms. And Eric made a beautiful garden in the back. And we passed by that house yesterday, and I just found out it had been sold for the 3rd time since they lived there. And their small little $300,000 house just sold for $600,000. The 3-bedroom house with small bedrooms.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, Eric, they lived there for quite a while, and they decided they want to buy something bigger. She had just finished rehabbing the house, and they bought a bigger house, not too far away, closer to the lake, right next to Sheridan Road, uh, on Beach Street in Sheridan, not too far from Sheridan, half a block from Sheridan Road. And Bonnie being an architect, everything had to be perfect. So she rebuilt everything in the house. It was a big, beautiful colonial, center entrance colonial with big rooms and 5 bedrooms. A bedroom on the third floor, four bedrooms on the second floor. One bedroom was a double size, and they had 4 bathrooms. So it was a big house.
Was this the one around the corner from the show?
Right around the corner from the show. And it was in a beautiful street, a beautiful area. And they bought it at a high price at the time because they sold their house at a high price. But she continued to put a lot of money into the house, more than she should have. New air conditioning, new remove the paint from the building, retuck pointed, put a whole
Tuck
new
point.
electricity. She remodeled this and she remodeled that. And don't ask what she did. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it was beautiful. They lived there very nicely, and he had a good job. He worked for a big company for TRW. He worked for them for 14 years, and he had a vice president. He had a nice thing. He traveled a lot, but it was a good job. Which all of a sudden they told him they're doing away with the position. So he decided he got a good package, and he didn't want to work for a corporation anymore. He wanted to buy his own business, and they wanted to go where it was warm. So they found this travels business and this tour business in Tucson, and he went down there. They eventually bought the business, and he moved down there for a year to run the business. And Bonnie stayed here and sold the house, and eventually they all moved down to Tucson. They're doing very well, very busy. They got the second business in New Mexico in Albuquerque,
Mm.
and they're doing very, very well. They do about 100 tours a year all over the world, and they take advantage of it because they go on the tours themselves a lot of times, and sometimes they go together, so they see the whole world. And they take the kids.
100 tours a year.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
10 to 25 to 30 people a tour.
Mm-hmm.
She's going to Italy. She's going to Sicily. She's taking 20 people. She's taking Sophia with her. Eric just got back from Japan. He spent 10 days. He took a tour there. So sometimes they lead the tours and they go themselves just for the experience. Most of the time they send their tour guides, but they have to arrange all the hotels and all the meals and all the transportation. So they have to be very, very. They have about 12 employees.
12 employees.
Yeah, two locations.
You got to be on top of everything. You have
Gotta be
to
on top of everything and
dot
double
every
check
I,
everything.
cross every T,
And things go bad and things go wrong,
and then know how to handle the
they know how to
many
handle.
crises that
They're
come up.
dealing with old ladies who are in their 70s, who like to travel, and these tours run. So anyway, she's doing very well. She's very happy with what they're doing. He has to be away from the house for about 3 days a week, but he's got an apartment there, and so they got a lifestyle which they enjoy, and their perks are they're making good money and they're traveling a lot.
Kids in college.
Shira was working for one guy, very wealthy individual, former CEO of a large international company, and her job is coming to an end. She's been working for 20 years. She's been his personal assistant 25 years, and so she's trying to figure out how to gear down and what she's going to do for the rest of her life. So she was here visiting for Mother's Day. Yesterday we had a nice visit. She was going to sleep over, but she went to a friend's house afterwards. So the kids are doing good. We're doing okay. When the kids were about 7 years old, we decided we wanted to see more of them. So we decided to leave Morton Grove. We were there 40 years. like a Meshuggah, I stayed in a small house all these years. Everybody moved away, and 1 year we came back from camping, and I says, you know what, I gotta find something. So 1 year I looked seriously, I couldn't find anything, and I wanted to move closer to the Highland Park, and I eventually found something that had been for sale for a long time and was empty for a whole year, and it was our dream house with big ceilings and big rooms and on the ravine with trees all around and more yard than I wanted, more land than I wanted, more house than I wanted, but it was walking distance to everything. So we made the big move. We sold off the old house and bought the new house.
How long were you in Morton Grove?
40 years.
40 years.
And hard to believe that, I was 72 when I bought this house, and thank God we've been here for 14 years. So,
Nice.
and enjoyed every minute of it. The kids were nearby, and we would see them almost every day, and see Bonnie almost every day, just passing by on the way to the library. And, when he lost his job and they moved to Tucson, it was a big loss to us. So the last 4 or 5 years they've been in Tucson, and if we want to see him, we got to spend money and time to go visit the grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
So we used to go twice a year to Tucson and stay for a week to a month. And now all the kids are at school. The grandchildren, Bonnie, Sophia, and Leah, went on to graduate high school in Tucson and both went to the University of Oregon in Eugene, Oregon, which is hard to get to, but that's where the courses they wanted were being offered, and they ended up at the same college. And we're planning next month. Bonnie's meeting us here at O'Hare, and we're flying to Oregon, to Eugene, for 4 days to visit the grandchildren. So we're looking forward to that.
They'll be there in June?
They'll be there, yeah. They'll be there when we're going, they're going to be there. Leia's got a program where she's going to Europe for a semester, to intern in Copenhagen. And Sophia will be taking another course at home, and she'll be spending a summer at the home. And Leia will come here for a week before she goes away. So we haven't got anybody here except God. Thank God. Your daughter, Chaya, we saw her day before yesterday, Wednesday.
Yeah.
They were in the neighborhood. We were just coming from a dedication, and they said they wanted to come and visit us. So they came over. I said, we can meet you in our parking lot, in our parking place, because we have to run out to a concert. So they came here with the car. We sat down outside. We visited for about 15 minutes, and then we had to go to the concert. So it was nice to see them. It was nice to see the new babies running around. He's beautiful, very friendly, and just a beautiful.
He's got a good disposition.
Oh, wonderful disposition.
Yeah, thanks.
So hey, them and Scott get together sometimes. Scott tries to keep in contact, and they with him. Doobie's a good guy, and they seem very happy, and it's good to see them. And we see Ner's son every once in a while. He stops by and brings the kids, and so we see him and Mushka. But with all the kids they got now, they got so busy. But most of the time when they come to visit their in-laws in Riverwoods, they stop by here.
Okay. How far are you from Riverwoods?
About 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Straight
down, right? Straight down.
Yeah, straight down. Whatever it is. Anyway,
I forget which street.
So that's where we are. So we're kind of alone here, but thank God, we have each other and one or two friends, not more. But we try to get out every day, do a little shopping, going to the doctor, going to the dentist, going to. Irene likes to go to the resale shops to see what bargains she can find, just for fun. And we've got several concerts here in town. which are wonderful. I think we have about 6 concerts that are free, and we have a theater nearby. We go see a play once in a while. We watch movies at night. I'm still active in the garden a little bit, so
Oh, good.
I still do that as much as I can. My back's not too good enough, so I can't walk very far. I can't stand too long, but we manage. So as long as we have each other and we're still mobile, and we get up and down the stairs to the laundry. That's all we have to go down for.
Okay.
But we got 2 handrails I installed in our bathtubs, and they're all handicap equipped. And the house is very easy to get along, and we can walk anywhere. So Irene can walk to the dentist or to the hardware store.
Oh, really?
To
And
the
you're not
dentist.
overwhelmed with home maintenance. Not too much for you.
Well, I've got a handyman. He was here for the last 3 days, rebuilding my back porch. So he's a carpenter. He's a jack of all trades. He's very good. He comes a long distance from the south side, but when I call him, he comes for a day, and he does all the things that I can't do, or that Irene can't do.
Mm-hmm.
He fixes the
Okay.
electric. He fixes the plumbing. He does a little bit of touch-up painting. He does the carpentry work. He does anything that we need him to do. So he's very good and very reliable, and he works for Scott also. So we have someone to rely on. And a window washer we have, and a gardener we have, a tree guy we have, and
Yeah. Snowplow.
snow plowing my landscaper does. So we have a cleaning lady to come, 2 girls to come every 2 weeks, and they go through the house in a couple hours. They're terrific, and so they keep the house clean and whatever Irene wants them to do. And so we don't have to do the heavy work.
Okay.
And love the area, and love sitting outside, and love sitting on the deck and looking at the trees, and
And the stream.
going to the lake. We go to the lake twice a week. And
Last night,
we went to the lake last night, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, because we were trying to see the Aurora Borealis, which was coming this way.
Yeah.
So we stayed out until 1 o'clock in the morning. We didn't see it. We didn't stay out long enough because somebody who was there 3 o'clock in the morning took pictures. They saw it.
Oh,
But
okay.
anyway, so we got things to do and places to go, and we keep busy.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Did you ever work with your father? Did you ever go to work with him?
Yeah, I used to go to work with him during the summers when I was off of high school, and when I was in college, he had not stopped. He had not been working anymore, and but I used to go to the buildings all the time. Every weekend, I used to go to the buildings and spend several hours there. And it
What'd
got
you
to
do? You did you painted, you
No,
repaired?
I didn't do much maintenance. I just oversaw guys who I hired, or something that was a small job, or I had to rent an apartment. Uh, and but I'm sorry that I sold the property. It was a big mistake. I just had a lot going on and started a new job in real estate, and I just didn't have the time. I should have hired a manager, but that's
For all the buildings?
no, we just had one left.
You
We
mean the
sold
one on Sacramento?
Yeah, that was Buckingham Building. Albany, we sold off 10 years before. Albany building we sold off 10 years
What
before.
was Albany?
We had a building on Albany and Lawrence,
On Albany and Lawrence, how many units?
26 units.
And you sold that when your father was still living or after he passed?
No, after he died.
So
Soon after he died.
I remember once when I was a kid, I went to the Buckingham building for something.
Uh-huh.
Maybe with you and my mother, maybe just my mother. I think there was a lighting store on the corner.
I don't
And then,
remember that, but
I must have been, I don't know, 9, 10 years old. I was there a couple years ago. My plane got
well, that neighborhood completely changed, and now it's called Boys Town.
as Boys Town.
Boys,
Our flight got canceled, and we were there for an extra day, and
you went visiting.
we were driving through. My son-in-law was taking us, and I said, "Gee, this looks familiar." And guess what? I passed Buckingham Street,
Yeah.
whichever I don't remember which street was the crossing. It was
Yeah,
Clark.
it was a mistake to sell that building. Probably worth $2 million today, maybe
Oh
3.
wow,
Yeah.
wow.
properties went crazy in that area. I mean, the whole city of Chicago, apartments, they don't go by the income anymore. They go by, well, if you have a 6-flat building, it's $150,000 an apartment. 150,000, so 6-flat building can cost you $1 million.
Wow.
Crazy,
Wow.
crazy.
Now,
But
I
anyway,
remember,
so I stopped doing my business when we moved here, pretty much. I had completed one of my largest sales. I had a big sale and felt comfortable. And I said we just moved in here and
was
never regretted it.
what kind of property was it?
Very large office complex, and
In,
for
in
about
the
30
city
million,
or in the suburbs?
suburbs, about $30 million deal. And so I haven't done anything in the last 8 or 10 years. I stopped riding my motorcycle when I was 80. I didn't have the balance or the strength anymore to handle the big bikes. So I just sold off the last bike. I couldn't bear to sell them. So I sold off my Harley and my Honda.
How many did you have?
2.
When did you sell them? You mean just recently?
Yeah, I sold my Honda last year, and we sold the Harley Davidson about 2 years ago, 3 years
Uh-huh.
ago, which really belonged to Shira. But I just wouldn't trust myself at this age. Balance isn't the same, and timing isn't the same, reaction time. So I
Yeah.
just, before anything bad happens, I should consider myself lucky that I never had an accident and sold it off.
Tell them the story of going to Whitwall.
And
with the bike.
one of my activities in the motorcycle was we formed a club here in Chicago called the Highway Riders. The
You
Highway
were one of
Riders.
the founders?
Yeah,
Yes.
we're from Highland Park, and we're the Highway Riders, but with a Yiddish accent. And it was composed of about 50 Jewish motorcycle riders. And we used to ride every weekend. We used to go out for 4 or 5 hours in the near countryside and small roads, and go out for lunch and come back. And I'd come back 3, 4, and Irene was good enough to let me go on Sunday, and I enjoyed it. And the Shira used to come along, and we used to ride with 15 or 20 guys, 25 guys. One time, all of us went on a 3-week trip to Utah, and we put the bikes on a trailer and we dragged them out to Utah, and we spent 3 weeks driving around Utah, looking at all the national parks in Colorado and Utah. It was a wonderful, wonderful trip. And then we joined a club called we joined a club called it was a national Jewish motorcycle club, and they had about 1,000 members of Jewish motorcycle riders all over the country. And once a year, we used to take a ride for charity to raise money for Jewish Holocaust remembrance. And we used to go to different cities and go to the Holocaust memorials and give them a nice check. So I went down to Georgia and West Virginia and New York, and we drove all over to these meetings. And Sherry used to come with, and we used to meet up with almost 500 Jewish riders. And it was just so interesting. We used to come to a hotel where we're going to stay, and all the religious guys riding bikes used to go in for Mincha or Ma'ariv in their motorcycle jackets. It was interesting. It was an interesting time. So that was one of our activities. But I stopped riding. I loved it and spent a lot of time, and now I just sold my bicycles because I'm afraid my balance got so bad, where I'm afraid to go on a pedal bicycle. But Irene and I exercise. We have a treadmill here and a bicycle, a stationary bike,
Hmm.
and we exercise every day as much as we can. Irene just had stent put in her heart, another stent. So she was in rehab for about a month at the hospital going on her bicycle, and now she exercises at home. So, it's all maintenance, exercise and doctors and hospitals and
Yeah.
pharmacies and good living. What can I tell you? Luckily, we have each other.
Okay. Okay. Very nice.
Recently, had some tests and new medications, and but we're doing okay.
Okay. Okay.
All
Good.
reports are good.
Now, I
Yes,
remember as a kid in Morton Grove that you put up a zip line.
we used to have kids come over to the house. We had a small house. We had a nice yard, and we used to have all the kids come over all the time. Gosowski's used to come over, and Irene's family used to come over, her cousins. And I put a zip line up. You're right, and I ran it from one side of the house all the way out to the garage, the other end of the garage. Hey, you remember the zip line? Yeah.
Yeah.
And we used to make picnics outside. We ate outside, and we spent a lot of time in the yard. And the Gosowskis came over quite often.
You
Uh,
remember going on the zip line as a kid? I didn't know what it was then.
they didn't call it a zip line. I don't know what they call it then.
They didn't call it a zip line then.
I don't know what it was.
I was thinking I should put one up in my yard, and I went to YouTube and was like, it wasn't simple, very complicated.
So anyway, I spent a lot of time with the Kosowski kids. I used to take Neach to the school where I worked in the summertime. They had it was like a club, an after school club, but it was a summer program in the school. And
Hmm.
I supervised the program, and I had about 3 or 4 employees who were from the Board of Education, and they had games, and we played baseball, played all the different outside sports, we had indoor sports and arts and crafts and music. So it was a summer program, and
Where was it?
it was in a small school in Chicago,
Like
but
what street?
I don't remember the street, but it was near Roosevelt Road and Austin Boulevard.
Okay.
There. Um, and so Nech used to come with me, and he remembers those times. I don't think I ever took you, but and I spent a lot of time by the Kosowski house, and I remember each one of you growing up, and you each had your own personalities, and um, your dad lived in that house how many years? 40 years? 50?
From 65 to 2014.
Wow, wow, yeah, and
It's 50 years,
50 years.
49 years.
And when mom got too much for dad to handle, they decided to go to California. They packed up 3 suitcases, their whole life with 3 suitcases, and they left everything else behind. And they went to live in California. And it was a good decision, but Irene and I spent the next 6 months trying to get rid of all the stuff in the house. You came, I think, twice to take stuff, books.
I
Scott
came
helped
for
pack
one day,
stuff.
3 days, and I tell that story a lot because I was
And
overwhelmed and lost, and Scott was unbelievable. He
when the
saved me.
two
He
of
said,
you,
"Liam, you're overthinking,"
yeah,
and he really saved me.
just get it done. That's his motto. Just do it.
It was beyond me. I ended up taking we went together. We took 35
Well,
boxes to the post office. 35 boxes to the post office to
mistake
mail.
was that's thousands of books. The mistake was I respected your father's wishes. Your father wanted everything in the house to go to one particular guy, and he didn't have a truck, and he used to come and take the seats out of his van to put everything in the house in the van, and he made like 20 different trips trying to get all the things out of the house, and it took months to clean out the house. And
Uh-huh.
then the house needed painting. I painted the whole house. There were holes in the ceiling. I patched, my handyman patched the ceiling. There were holes in the roof. I patched the roof. The floors were in horrible shape. I sanded all the floors. So we did the best we could. to make the house presentable. But the house did not show well. The kitchen was terrible. And the dad never did anything in the kitchen, so the whole kitchen had to be redone. The bathrooms were in good shape, but they were old style. And the basement was kind of put together with matchsticks.
Yeah.
And,
And duct tape.
duct tape. Yeah. And you had an extra bathroom downstairs that worked half of the time. So people looked at the basement. They said, "Well, we got to do the whole thing over again." People looked at the house. They said, "Oh, needs a whole new kitchen." If they looked at the bathrooms are old. And so I says, "Look, I told the broker. I gave it to a broker. I says, we will put a new roof on. I got an estimate. It was $5,000 for a roof. Roof was leaking, and but that didn't help. So I put the price up where I thought it should be. Not one religious couple came to see the house. I called up Chabad. I called up the religious brokers. And I says, come, I want to give you the listing. Get out to the Jewish community. There's a Frum family across the street. There's a Frum family down the street. But everybody wanted to stay north of Devon.
One thing is they want to stay north of Devon, and the people who
No
couldn't
one
afford north
was.
of Devon, I think they couldn't get a mortgage. They didn't have the down payment.
The problem was that so it was very difficult. So it's all Goyim who came to look at the house.
I still am amazed. I shake my head at how you cleaned up the house.
Irene and I worked there for 4 months.
More. And then there was a break in
I'll tell
the
you one of the problems was there was papers in the basement going back 40 years, and it was a lot of personal information. And most of it, 80% of it, had the Rebbe's name or Rebbe's picture or something out of a shas or old this and old that. As I can't throw it away. So finally, I got it together and I put it into piles. And I said, you know what? Can't deal with this. I called up the shredders, and they shredded everything.
Yeah. And do you remember there was a break-in in the basement?
There was a break-in. They took some silver out of the house, but there was nothing else to take in the house.
No.
Downstairs was all junk downstairs.
The anything of value was the Sfarim.
Swarm. So you got and that took a long time to get rid of the swarm until Chaim came with Nechama, and then you came, and we tried to get rid of what am I going to do with all this stuff? And I don't know where I did with the swarm. Eventually, I think I gave them away to the. They all took what they wanted to take.
I think the yeshiva maybe took, or they have something.
So anyway, Connie's husband came and he took the car and the computers and some of the books. So David Abba came and spent the day and took the car. The car ready, but I think he drove the car for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, need new tires.
He took everything.
All tires.
The old Lexus, and that I found for your father. I found it and I bought it for him. It was a good buy. So that's the story. Your mother and your father and I. They went camping with us once.
Elkhart.
Went camping once to Michigan. And so Erwin says, it's okay if I put on tefillin. I says, no one's going to bother you. Put on tefillin. So I says, now you know that every place you put on tefillin becomes a holy place. That campsite's a holy place.
Yeah.
And I told the broker when she sold the house, I says, whoever buys this house, you got to tell them it's a very holy house. Whoever lives here is gebenched with 50 years of
yes,
giving our Lord everything that He wanted and being the best Jew he could. I consider your father the holiest man I ever met.
Thank you.
He was. He never preached there.
Never preached to us. Always had a joke. Always was lighthearted. Your mother was the opposite. She's always trying to convert us and make us be better Jews. But that was her nature. And And but Dad never said a word about it. Always was full of fun.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, did my income tax for 50 years and never charged me.
I didn't
So,
charge.
but I hope I paid him back. And that
Well, you
was it.
did at the end to get the house ready for sale and everything
And then
was unreal.
we visited him in California twice a year. Him and Rights.
Many times.
We were there about 5 or 6 times in California.
Oh yeah.
And we used to visit with them. And then we used to take a break. We used to like to go to the beach and sit on the boardwalk,
Mm-hmm.
life go by and look at the ocean and have lunch. And so that was our last time we went. It was running from nursing home to hospital to nursing home to hospital. It wasn't a pleasant trip, but he did well for his daughter. Bought him a beautiful house, and you know, they do the best they can there.
Yeah, yeah. And my parents lived till their late 80s,
They
89 and
lived there
88.
until they had 8 years there.
And they were married 68 and a half years.
Yeah, it's marvelous. And Irene and I are 60, going on 63 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well,
Beautiful.
so that's the life of Kushner here.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can't say that I missed anything. I would have liked to travel more, but we went to Europe and we went to Spain and Italy and France and England and Scotland and Ireland and Israel and Jordan and where else were we? I don't know. We were in different cities in Europe. We were in Australia for a bar mitzvah.
A wedding.
By the way, I had a phone call from your sister from Minna
Yeah.
announcing her youngest son's wedding in July. How nice of her to call.
Very nice.
Very nice. You guys are wonderful at keeping in touch and letting Irene know what's going on in the world and treating us like your own parents.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we feel very we're lucky. We're lucky to have relatives like you.
So that's the story. So we're still together all these years, and she's the balabusta. Oh, yeah, she's the balabusta for the house.
Did you lose the signal?
Somehow I can't see us.
We can see you now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So
Okay.
that's the story.
All right.
So we take it day by day, and we live for hearing from our children, from our dear relatives.
Okay. Wonderful. I'm gonna stop the recording now.
Okay. We'll hope to see you here in the summer. You come and visit Chaya. And
We're planning.
Neach, I'm sure, will be coming to visit his grandchildren.
Yeah, we don't have a date yet, but we are planning a visit.
Well,
So
God willing,
believe
we'll
me,
still
we'll let
be
you know.
God willing, we'll still be here.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording.